The lengths reality TV producers will go to try to keep us guessing. On Monday's episode of The Bachelorette, we watched Becca Kufrin go on hometown dates, visiting the stomping grounds of the 4 men she's stringing along, keeping around. Blake Horstman, seen on a previous date with Bachelorette Becca Kufrin, was still the frontrunner after the hometown dates episode. Paul Hebert, ABC, let us stop and consider the ridiculousness of this for a moment. By this stage of the game, with a proposal mere weeks away, Becca has to know which man she wants to end up with. And yet the formula dictates she visit the families of all 4 and pretend that she can envision a future with each of them, which she dutifully did on Monday's show. Yet it was clear that Blake Horstman was still the frontrunner, that Jason Tartick was probably the guy whose heart she'd break on proposal day, that Garrett Irigoyen would likely get jettisoned after the fantasy suites, and that Colton Underwood would get turfed without having to defend his virginity in one of those. Nonetheless, we had a silly side plot that rehashed the Becca-Colton-Tia Booth triangle that isn't really a triangle, no doubt thrown in to make us think that Colton had a chance of getting a rose. Article continued below. This was ridiculous on a number of levels. First off, Colton and Tia spent the weekend together, during which they did not have sex. I get the whole not dating guys your friends dated thing, but A, that wasn't really dating, and B, a sexless weekend doesn't give you lifetime dibs on a person, particularly when that person goes on a dating show, which would seem to suggest he wasn't that into you to begin with. Secondly, when you tell your friend you've moved on and you're totally cool with her dating the guy, why do you wait until the guy has taken her home to meet his family to tell her you still have feelings for him? Because you're playing along with a reality TV storyline, that's why. In any event, Becca did what she was planning to do all along and sent Colton home, clearing the decks for Tia to apparently get another shot at him on Bachelor in Paradise. Good luck with that. Here's how the rest of the episode went. Date No. 1 with Jarrett. No matter how smiley Garrett is, and no matter what a great guy Becca and his family say he is, I haven't been able to take him seriously as a suitor ever since that scandal about his Instagram likes, so it was kind of a relief to see that Becca wasn't as into him as it first seemed. Yes, they made out on a tractor at his family's agricultural business, a farm, in Manteca, Caliph. Yes, Becca said he'd be a hot dad, and reiterated that his outdoorsiness reminded her of her own late father, but she didn't seem likely to be putting down roots with Garrett, tomato plant or otherwise. The theme of the visit with his family was how hurt he'd been when his marriage broke up and their worry that he'd be hurt again. Becca assured them she felt the weight of Garrett's history and would be honest with Garrett if he wasn't the one for her, which was enough for his folks to give her their blessing. Article continued below. Becca said his family's kindness was something she'd want in my future partner's family, and something just feels so easy and right and natural with him. Translation: get ready to help Garrett through another heartbreak. Date number 2 with Jason. At least Jason had some real activities planned for Becca on what looked like a cold day in Buffalo, New York. First up, chicken wings at the Anchor Bar, then a hockey lesson at the Harbor Center Arena. Becca said in voiceover she was falling hard for Jason but also couldn't stop talking about what a great kisser he was. He beat Garrett's tractor smooch sesh by planting kisses on Becca from atop a Zamboni. Jason told his parents he was falling deeply for Becca, but his mom, Dale, told Jason she couldn't tell if Becca was falling for him. Nonetheless, Jason assured Dale he was confident his relationship with Becca had surpassed those of the other men. Jason's brother Steve and Steve's husband Billy urged Jason to tell Becca how he felt, so he did, confessing that he was so insanely, wildly in love with you. Becca smiled and leaned into him and said, "You mean the world to me, too." And there was quite a lot of goodbye smooching. Date No. 3 with Blake. I'm not generally a fan of the visiting the old high school date, but Blake did 2 things that made it more than just a self-centered reliving of past glories. He told Becca that his outlook on life had changed after a shooting at his school, Platte Canyon in Bailey, Colorado, in which a student had died. He planned a concert in the school gym with Becca's favorite singer, Betty Who. Becca had already reiterated in voiceover that she was in love with Blake before they set foot in his family's home. Blake's mom, Shelley, was convinced he'd found the one he wants to spend the rest of his life with, but still feared she'd have to endure another round of tears and panic attacks if he had his heart broken. Blake's dad could see how happy Blake seemed, but worried how he and Becca would cope once the fantasy dates were over. Becca seemed genuinely moved by the visit, tearing up as she told Blake how much she loved talking to his family. "I can see Blake in my life forever and his family in my life forever," she said. Date no. 4 with Colton. The odds were against Colton long before Becca jumped into his arms in Parker, Colo. Aside from the Tia thing and the virgin thing, there was the fact he'd only had one previous relationship and had never formally introduced a woman to his family. Still, Becca had a good time hanging out with him and a couple of the patients at Children's Hospital Colorado and swooned a little over Colton's way with youngsters. At his parents' home there were some blunt conversations. Dad Scott asked both Becca and Colton about Tia and Becca's engagement to Ari Luyendijk Jr. Mom Donna discussed Colton's virginity with both him and Becca. Ick. Scott put it straight to Becca, "Unless you truly care the same about him, I don't want you to pick him." Given all that emphasis on supposed honesty, it seemed disingenuous for Becca to say that she hoped to hear Colton say he loved her and, when he did, say in voiceover she was falling for him too. With friends like this, there was no point in having Becca rehash her hometown dates with pals Caroline, signed, Kendall, Becca and Tia on the pretense of getting advice, except to have Tia drop her Colton bomb. Becca had barely started recounting her visit to Colton's hometown when Tia asked if they could talk in private. "I just feel like I am so excited to hear you talk about Blake and Garrett and Jason," said Tia. "When I think about Colton, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I do feel like I still have feelings for Colton. When I think about Colton being at this point now, it makes me sick to my stomach. Oh please. Overdramatic much." Becca declared herself frustrated and angry to learn that Tia was still carrying a torch for Colton, and who can blame her? It was all just silly and annoying. When rose time came, Becca gave flowers to Blake, Jason and Garrett in that order. Colton looked like he was trying to hold back tears as Becca walked him out. Before the rose ceremony, he buttonholed host Chris Harrison to ask if he had to have sex in the fantasy suite, although he didn't use those words, so obviously he wasn't expecting to go home. "I'm trying to figure out why, because my hometown date was hands down one of the best days," he said as a limo whisked him away. "I fell in love with Becca. It's just hard when you don't get love back. Hey, maybe he and Tia can commiserate about that feeling in paradise." In the meantime, expect much smoochery in next week's Fantasy Suite episode and tears from Becca because I literally just did to him what Ari did to me. You can watch Monday at 8 p.m. on City. And you can email me at dyo@thestar.ca, tweet me at realityo, or visit my Facebook page.